The absence seizures, which again is under the generalized seizure too, that one is the one where people will just space out kind of for maybe 10 seconds, maybe less, maybe a little more. But for a very brief time, they will just stare into space, and they won't be conscious. They will not hear what you're saying. They may come back to and not know what just occurred. They may not even realize that they just had a seizure. And so they can be really hard to see when they happen unless you're in a one-on-one conversation with them and actually can see them having it. The complex partial seizure and the simple partial, those are both under the partial seizure, so only part of the brain is happening at one time. And the complex partial seizure is more where somebody is, they do lose consciousness, so they cannot respond back to you. They may not really hear what you're saying during it, but they're probably wandering around, maybe picking at their shirt repetitively or smacking their lips, and walking around aimlessly. And so you're not sure. Maybe sometimes if you see these people in public and you were to run across this, you wouldn't be sure what exactly is happening to them. And they could maybe look as if they were on drugs or getting into mischievous behavior. And this is often the one that we train law enforcement about, because law enforcement will sometimes, if they're not educated about epilepsy, then sometimes they may handle those situations as if it is a criminal activity sort of thing, or drugs or alcohol happening. So just be aware of that. And also, I've heard schools too, at some of the school trainings that I've been on, say how they've mishandled the complex partial, not realizing what has been going on. And one of the stories that I remember hearing is about, I think it was in a middle school, and a boy was having the complex partial seizure, and he was not obeying the rules and, instructions and people talking to him. He was walking around aimlessly, and a security guard got involved, and he ended up getting a gun pulled on him in the school. So these sorts of things can happen where people misread them, and if you are around them at that moment, just really educate the public on what is happening, and that it's a seizure. So the simple partial seizures, those are where somebody is conscious. They can actually report what's happening to them. And what is usually happening is that one part of the body is maybe reacting, so maybe like a limb is shaking or doing something kind of out of the norm. And the other part of a simple partial could be just a sensation or a feeling, of maybe panic, or maybe they get a funny taste in their mouth or a funny smell that isn't really there. And so those could be simple partial seizures, and sometimes people call those auras, and they might happen before another seizure happens, so they could lead into, let's say, a tonic-clonic or into a complex partial. And they could be actually a warning for people sometimes. So some people who have active seizures, if they have this simple partial, they can actually still drive and things like that, because they have a warning to pull over before they actually have the convulsive seizure. So seizure triggers. Most people with seizures, do have triggers, and they have to be careful about situations that they're in, or if they've had enough sleep, or if they've been under stress lately. So managing these things are really important for people who do have seizures. And the number one trigger, so making sure that whoever has a seizure disorder is actually taking their medication and taking it relatively on time. Usually the meds need to be taken within a very short period of time, so maybe within an hour, the same hour every day, so 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., something like that every day, and make sure that you're getting it as close to that time as possible. and if maybe if stress and anxiety actually have been linked to seizures happening and they're a seizure trigger. So again, trying to help that person or help yourself manage your stress and anxiety would be probably a really good thing for somebody with epilepsy, because when you're stressed out, you just, tend to have more seizures. And then hormonal changes have been linked too. So if somebody is maybe going through puberty, that can be a time where seizures change, whether they become more frequent or maybe a different kind of seizure, or maybe they become less frequent, or maybe they disappear. So hormonal changes, though, could be something to keep in mind, or maybe when someone's going through menopause, things might change again. Or when somebody's in that, going through their menstrual cycle, in certain periods of that cycle, they may have more seizures or be at a higher risk. Lack of sleep is a big one for people with epilepsy, and it's really important that they have a regular sleep pattern and get the typical amount of sleep, I guess, that they need every night in order to help seizures not occur. And then some other things, dehydration and photosensitivity are some others. You probably have heard of photosensitivity, and that's just where lights, like blinking lights, flashing lights, may trigger seizures. That is a trigger, but it's not as common as maybe some of the others listed. And people with epilepsy who are taking medications are noted to watch their drug and alcohol use, because some of the meds won't react well to those. Okay, so seizure first aid. All right, so one of the things to just really keep in mind, this is sort of a general seizure first aid that we have listed here, and it would be for somebody who's having a tonic-clonic seizure, and so the convulsive type where they have fallen down and they're probably shaking. One of the best things you can do is to stay calm. It's not always an easy thing to watch somebody having a seizure, and you may tend to, get scared or have some reaction like that, and that's really normal. And so just tell yourself to stay calm and really stay with them, and educate other people on what's happening too. And track the time. We say 5 minutes is kind of the rule, the time that you should call an ambulance if the seizure hasn't resolved itself would be at 5 minutes. Anytime under 5 minutes, it should be okay, and it should resolve itself. Like I said, most tonic-clonic seizures will last maybe 2 minutes. And part of the reason for that 5-minute rule is that brain damage doesn't really happen to a person having a seizure, I think, until they say about 30 to 60 minutes. So that gives plenty of time for emergency personnel to get there and to try to get the seizure under control. Part of the other reason for the 5-minute rule is the longer a seizure goes on, the harder it is for it to stop. So, or for people to stop it, like medication, emergency meds to stop it. So getting it, on the closer end to 5 minutes would be good for most people if it is, in fact, going into something that's a prolonged seizure. So basically for tonic-clonic, you would want to turn them on their side, and that's to help open their airway and to help the saliva run out of their mouth instead of, getting into their throat and making it hard for them to breathe. And maybe loosen anything that's around their neck. So if they have a scarf or a tie or a necklace or something like that, you may want to take that off or loosen it. And also you would want to put something soft under their head. Maybe if you had a coat or a sweatshirt or something that you can take off and put under their head, or even just hold your hands under their head, that's a good way to prevent their head from hitting the ground. And